The mafia boss laughed and said, "If you can beat my champion, I'll marry you." Everyone in the underground club laughed with him. Everyone except the waitress. Lena Hart stood beneath the white cage lights, with blood at the corner of her mouth, a silver tray trembling in one hand, and 300 dangerous strangers waiting for her to break. She had spent years learning how to disappear, how to lower her eyes, and how to survive men who believed silence meant weakness. But some nights change your life because you finally stop running. This is not only a story about an impossible fight or a ruthless marriage. It is about hidden strength, the price of dignity, and what happens when the person everyone overlooks becomes the most dangerous person in the room. Stay until the end, like the video and comment where you are watching from. 6 hours earlier, before the blood, before the laughter, before Vincent Caruso turned a joke into a promise, Lena Hart stood alone in a frozen parking lot and watched snow bury the Atlantic City boardwalk. The wind came off the ocean hard enough to sting her eyes. Neon from the surviving casinos bled across the wet pavement in shades of red and blue, making the abandoned buildings look almost alive. Behind her, the old Seabrook Casino rose from the darkness like the skeleton of a ship. Its windows had been boarded for 11 years. Its underground rooms had never closed. Lena pulled her coat tighter and studied the reflection in the employee entrance. Empty street, one parked sedan, no headlights, no movement behind the steamed glass of the diner across the road. She waited 10 more seconds. That was one of the habits she had never been able to kill. Never enter a building until you knew who might be watching. Never trust an empty street. Never assume silence meant safety. Only then did she unlock the door. Warm air carrying the smell of bleached cigar smoke and old concrete met her in the narrow hallway. Somewhere below, a crowd roared as a body struck steel. Lena checked the time. 8:12. She was late by 3 minutes. Her manager would notice, because managers always noticed the things that cost them nothing. He would not notice the broken lock on the women's changing room or the security camera above the rear stairs that had stopped working 2 weeks ago. Lena knew because she had tested both. She walked past the kitchen, ignored the cook shouting over a smoking grill, and entered the staff room. Metal lockers lined the walls. Most were covered with stickers, photographs, or handwritten reminders. Lena's locker was bare. Inside hung a black uniform, a spare pair of shoes, and a canvas bag containing everything she would need to leave Atlantic City before sunrise. Cash, a second phone, 3 forged identification cards, a small first aid kit, a bus schedule. She changed quickly, pinned her dark hair beneath a simple clip, and put on clear glasses that softened the sharpness of her face. The lenses had no prescription. They existed for the same reason the loose uniform existed, to make her forgettable. She counted the money in her wallet. $43. Her landlord had left another message that afternoon. The rest of the rent was due by Monday. The hospital had sent a final notice to an address she had stopped using months earlier. A collection company had called 6 times about a student loan attached to a name that no longer officially belonged to anyone. Lena deleted the messages without listening to them. Debts could be survived. Recognition could not. She closed the locker and pressed her palm against the metal until the trembling in her fingers stopped. 3 years had passed since the highway outside Mobile. 3 years since headlights filled her rearview mirror and gunfire tore through the back window of her car. 3 years since she had crawled through salt grass with blood soaking the back of her shirt while flames swallowed the vehicle behind her. The memories never arrived as a complete scene. They came as fragments, burning rubber, mud beneath her nails, a man calling her old name into the darkness. Lena opened her eyes. The staff room was empty. The breakwater was waiting. Officially, it was a private members club operating beneath the old Seabrook Casino. Its owners claimed it hosted charity boxing exhibitions and invitation-only business dinners. No charity had ever received $1 from the place. 2 floors below the kitchen, beyond a reinforced door and a staircase lined with cameras, Atlantic City's most dangerous men gambled on blood. The central room had once been the casino's largest ballroom. The chandeliers were gone now. Steel lighting rigs hung from the ceiling, throwing white light over a cage built in the center of the floor. Black leather booths rose in curved levels around it. A bar of smoked glass stretched across the far wall. Men arrived through private entrances with bodyguards and expensive watches. Women wore gowns worth more than Lena earned in a year. Judges drank beside smugglers. Police captains laughed with union bosses. Everyone knew what the others were. No one said it aloud. Lena survived there because she understood the oldest rule of powerful men. They rarely looked at the person serving them. She carried drinks, cleared glasses, lowered her eyes when someone stared too long. She remembered every face but encouraged no one to remember hers. By 9, the first fight had already ended. The loser lay on the floor while a private doctor checked his pupils. The winner raised both arms as Cash moved across the room. Lena passed behind the cage with a tray of bourbon and watched Cole Maddox step through the open door. The room changed when Cole appeared. He was not loud. He did not pound his chest or insult the man waiting across from him. He removed his robe, handed it to a trainer, and rolled his shoulders once. 6 feet 5 inches, close to 260 pounds. Heavy hands. Old scar above the left eyebrow. A faint stiffness in the right knee. Lena slowed for half a second. Cole shifted his weight before the bell and pressed 2 fingers into the outside of his knee. The motion was small enough that the crowd missed it. She did not. His opponent was a dock worker named Alan Price, broad through the chest and nervous around the eyes. Patrick Callahan's people had brought him from Philadelphia and spent the entire evening claiming he had never been knocked down. Cole knocked him down in 34 seconds. The first blow struck Alan's ribs. The second opened his guard. The third landed against his jaw with a sound like a door slamming in an empty house. Alan collapsed before his knees seemed to understand he had been hit. The crowd erupted. Lena kept moving. At the Caruso table, Tyler Briggs slapped both hands against the table and shouted for Cole to finish the man, even though the fight was already over. Tyler was handsome in the careless way that came from never being told no. Blonde hair, expensive suit, too much whiskey. He wore a pistol beneath his jacket and the confidence of a man who believed the weapon made him important. Lena had served him before. He tipped badly and touched women who could not afford to object. She placed a fresh bottle on the Caruso table without looking at him. About time, Tyler said. Lena moved on. At 11:40, Vincent Caruso entered the breakwater. No announcement was made. None was needed. Conversation lowered as he descended the stairs. Vincent wore a charcoal suit beneath a black overcoat dusted with snow. He was not the largest man in the room, but space opened around him as if his presence carried its own gravity. 2 men followed several steps behind. Graham Reed, his advisor, moved with the stillness of someone who noticed exits before faces. The second man remained near the stairs and watched the room through dark, patient eyes. Vincent removed his gloves 1 finger at a time. He greeted no one until he reached his table. A city councilman stood to shake his hand. Vincent let the man wait while he looked toward the cage where workers were cleaning blood from the floor. Only after sitting did he acknowledge the politician. The message was quiet and precise. In this room, power did not belong to public office. It belonged to him. Lena approached with a bottle of bourbon and a clean glass. She felt Vincent's attention before he raised his eyes. Most people noticed his face first, the severe mouth, the dark hair combed back from his forehead, the thin scar near his chin. Lena noticed his hands. No rings, a healing cut across one knuckle. Slight tension in the right wrist when he reached for the glass. She placed the bourbon near his left hand. Vincent looked at the glass, then at her. "You've served me before." His voice was calm, almost conversational. Lena kept her expression neutral. "You've ordered bourbon before." Tyler laughed. Graham did not. Vincent held her gaze for another second. His eyes were gray, colder than the winter pressing against the building above them. "What's your name, Lena?" "Just Lena." It has always been enough for the drink orders. The corner of his mouth moved, though not quite into a smile. She left before he could ask another question. In the service hallway, Lena released the breath she had been holding. She did not like observant men. Observant men survived long enough to become dangerous. The night grew louder. Cole won a second exhibition when another fighter refused to answer the bell. Bets climbed. Bottles emptied. The air became thick with heat and perfume. Lena worked the upper booths where Patrick Callahan sat with 4 captains and watched the Caruso table with the polite dislike of a man waiting for a rival to make a mistake. Patrick was older than Vincent with silver hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. His organization controlled trucking routes, warehouse crews, and several unions along the East Coast. He raised his glass when Lena approached. To Cole Maddox, he said, "The safest bet in New Jersey." His men laughed. Lena poured without comment. Patrick watched her hand. "You disagree, I don't gamble. Everyone gambles, not everyone calls it that." Patrick's smile sharpened. Before he could continue, Tyler shouted for another bottle. Lena returned to the Caruso table. Tyler's glass was still half full. He held it up to the light and frowned. "This is dirty." It was not. Lena placed a clean glass beside him. Tyler looked at the replacement, then at her. "I didn't ask for another glass. I said this one was dirty. I replaced it. You calling me a liar?" "No." The answer came too quickly for him to enjoy it. Tyler leaned back, then smiled. Lena remained still. "What smile? You work for tips." His friends watched with bored amusement. Vincent was speaking quietly with Graham and appeared not to notice. Lena had learned that powerful rooms were filled with men who pretended not to see until they decided which side would benefit them. She gave Tyler the smallest possible smile. It contained no warmth. His face hardened. "That's not a smile. It is the one you paid for." One of the men at the table coughed into his fist to hide a laugh. Tyler caught Lena's wrist. The room did not disappear. It narrowed. His thumb pressed against the inside of her arm. His shoulder rolled slightly forward. His weight rested too heavily on his left foot. Lena saw all of it. She also saw the highway. The rear window exploding, a hand reaching through smoke. She forced the memory down. "Let go," she said. Tyler grinned. "Ask nicely." Lena rotated her wrist toward the gap between his fingers. Her other hand closed around his thumb. She stepped closer, using the table to hide the movement from most of the room, and bent the joint back until his grip opened. Tyler hissed. She released him immediately. For one moment neither moved. Then laughter came from the neighboring booth. Tyler stood so fast his chair struck the floor. He grabbed Lena's shoulder. Her body reacted before thought could stop it. She trapped his wrist against her chest, turned beneath his arm, and drove her hip into his balance. Tyler slammed against the edge of the table hard enough to send glasses sliding. The bourbon bottle fell. Vincent caught it before it hit the floor. Silence spread outward from the table. Tyler tore his arm free and reached inside his jacket. The pistol appeared beneath the lights. Several people stepped back. Lena moved sideways, not away from the muzzle, across it. Tyler's own men now stood behind her directly in his line of fire. He hesitated. That hesitation told Vincent more than the weapon did. "Put it away," Vincent said. He did not raise his voice. Tyler looked at him. "She attacked me. You grabbed her. She embarrassed me." Vincent set the bottle upright. "That seems to be a talent of hers." A few people laughed again. Tyler's face flushed. He lowered the gun but did not holster it. Lena's pulse hammered against her throat. She kept her hands visible and her breathing even. Vincent studied her. "You watched his shoulder." Lena said nothing. When he drew the pistol, Vincent continued, "You watched his shoulder, not the gun. Hands lie, and shoulders don't, not quickly enough." Graham leaned toward Vincent and spoke near his ear. Lena could not hear the words, but she saw Vincent's expression change. He looked at her as if she had stopped being furniture and become a locked door. "How long have you worked here?" he asked. 8 months. "Where before that restaurants? Which one's the kind that close?" Tyler shoved the pistol back beneath his jacket. "She knows a trick. That's all." Lena picked up her tray. Tyler stepped into her path. "You think you're tough? I think I'm working. You think you could do that to someone who saw it coming?" The crowd had begun to turn toward them. Lena saw phones being raised. She felt the walls closing. Attention was danger. Cameras were worse. She should have apologized. She should have lowered her eyes and let Tyler believe he had won. That was how she had survived for 3 years. Then Tyler smiled at her the way the men on the highway had smiled when they thought she could not escape. Something inside her went still. Vincent noticed the change. He looked toward the cage. Cole Maddox stood nearby with his hands wrapped speaking to a trainer. The undefeated champion had not followed the argument. He looked bored. Vincent leaned back in his chair. "You believe you can handle yourself, Lena. I believe I can finish my shift. What if I offered you something better? I doubt you have anything I want." The nearby tables grew quiet. Vincent glanced around the room. Patrick Callahan was watching now. So were the bookmakers, the captains, and every man who measured power by how quickly another person obeyed. Vincent could not allow Tyler to shoot her. He could not allow Lena to walk away after humiliating one of his lieutenants. He needed a punishment that looked like entertainment. His gaze returned to Cole. A faint smile touched his mouth. "You embarrassed one of my men. Your man embarrassed himself." More laughter. Tyler took one step forward, but Graham blocked him with an arm. Vincent's smile widened. "You think you're dangerous?" Lena looked at the gun beneath Tyler's jacket. "I think your men need better manners." Someone near the cage whistled. Vincent laughed. It was not the cold sound people used to flatter him. It was real, surprised and brief. Then he pointed toward Cole. "If you can beat my champion, I'll marry you." For half a second, the room did not understand. Then the laughter broke. Men slapped tables. Women leaned close to one another. Bookmakers began shouting odds before Lena had spoken. Cole turned at the sound of his name. Tyler stared at Lena with open satisfaction. He believed she had been cornered. Lena looked at the cage. She looked at Cole's right knee. She looked at the rear exit beyond the bar. She could leave. She could walk into the snow, collect the bag from her locker, and become someone else before morning. She had done it before, but every phone in the room had already captured her face. Running would not restore her invisibility. It would only make her look afraid. Lena lowered her tray. The silver edge touched the concrete. For one breath, she held it there. Then she released it. The crash silenced the room. Crystals shattered around her shoes. She removed her apron, folded it carefully, and placed it on the nearest table. Vincent's smile faded. "You're serious." Lena took off her glasses. "I hope you own a decent suit." Vincent's eyes narrowed. "I own several. For the wedding." A different kind of laughter moved through the room now, less certain. Cole entered the cage and removed his robe. Lena stepped through the door after him. The lights felt hotter inside the steel walls. The noise became distant, as if the cage existed at the bottom of the ocean. Cole looked her over. His expression held no anger, only insult. "I don't hit women." Lena glanced at Alan Price, still sitting near the medical table with ice against his jaw. "You don't seem selective." Cole looked toward Vincent. Vincent gave one small nod. The cage door locked. The betting board changed rapidly. 10,000 against Lena. 20,000. 50. Patrick Callahan rose from his booth and placed $4 million on Cole Maddox. The number appeared above the cage. The crowd roared. Lena rolled her shoulders. Pain moved beneath the scars on her back, old and familiar. Cole began to circle. He was faster than a man his size had any right to be. His feet were light. His breathing was controlled. The weakness in his knee existed, but it had not made him careless. "You can still quit," he said. "So can you." The bell rang. Cole moved first. His right hand came wide and fast, meant to frighten her backward. Lena stepped forward. Her heel struck the nerve above his injured knee. Her palm drove beneath his ribs. The impact stopped his breath for half a second. Not enough. Cole caught her shoulder and threw her into the cage. Steel struck the scars along her back. White pain filled her vision. The crowd exploded. Tyler shouted something she could not hear. Cole saw her face tighten and believed he had found the end of the fight. He charged. Lena waited. 1 step. 2. At the final instant, she pivoted. Cole's shoulder slammed into the steel mesh. The cage shook. Before he could turn, Lena trapped his wrist, stepped behind his damaged leg, and pulled his balance in 2 directions at once. Cole dropped to one knee. She struck the side of his neck. His eyes lost focus. He tried to rise. Lena wrapped her leg around his shoulder and locked his arm against her hip. Cole roared and lifted her from the floor. For one impossible second, her body hung above the mat. Vincent stepped closer to the cage. Cole, the champion, ignored him. He tried to drive Lena into the floor. She tightened the lock. The sound that followed was small, dry, final. Cole's arm broke. He collapsed. Lena released him immediately and rolled away. The bell never rang. No one remembered to touch it. 11 seconds had passed. Cole lay on his side, gripping his arm. Lena stood beneath the white lights, one hand pressed against the pain in her back. The room had forgotten how to breathe. Behind the bar, a bottle slipped from someone's hand and shattered. Lena walked to the cage door. A guard unlocked it without being told. She stepped over the broken glass, returned to the table, and picked up her folded apron. Then she crossed the silent floor toward Vincent Caruso. His champion was down. Patrick Callahan had lost $4 million. Every rival in Atlantic City was watching. Lena stopped in front of Vincent. A thin line of blood touched the corner of her mouth. "You made a promise." Vincent looked at Cole, then at Patrick, then at the phones recording his face. His entire empire rested on the belief that Vincent Caruso's word could not be broken. "So I did," he said. "Then pick a date." Vincent rose slowly. The room seemed to shrink around them. He leaned close enough that only Lena could hear him. "Before I marry you, I'm going to find out who you really are." Lena held his gaze. "That makes two of us." For the first time that night, Vincent Caruso had no answer. Around them, the breakwater remained silent. Cole Maddox was being lifted onto a stretcher. Patrick Callahan stood near the betting table with one hand pressed flat against the polished wood, staring at the number that had just vanished from his account. Tyler Briggs had gone pale beneath the lights. Lena could feel every camera pointed at her. She had spent 3 years erasing herself. 11 seconds had brought her back into the world. Vincent stepped away first. Graham. His advisor appeared beside him at once. "Clear the room." A few people laughed, assuming it was a joke. Graham looked toward the security team. The laughter stopped. Men in dark suits moved through the crowd and ordered guests toward the exits. Bookmakers shut down the betting terminals. Bartenders collected bottles from tables before anyone could use them as weapons. Patrick Callahan did not move. Neither did the 4 captains surrounding him. Vincent buttoned his jacket. "The night is over, Patrick." Patrick looked toward Cole, then back at Vincent. "For you, maybe." His voice was soft, but every man nearby heard it. He walked closer. Patrick was old enough to have known Vincent's father and powerful enough to speak without asking permission. His silver hair was combed neatly. Not a single wrinkle marked his suit. Only his eyes betrayed him. He had lost more than money. He had lost it in public. "You had an undefeated champion," Patrick said. "I placed a wager based on that reputation." Vincent glanced toward the cage. "You placed a wager because you wanted to win. I placed $4 million because your house guaranteed a fair fight." Lena watched Patrick's right hand. It rested near his coat pocket. Not near a weapon. Near his phone. He wanted witnesses. He wanted every word recorded. Vincent understood it too. The fight was fair. Patrick smiled without warmth. A waitress walks into your cage and breaks Cole Maddox in 11 seconds. Either you fixed the fight or you did not know who she was. Vincent said nothing. Patrick looked at Lena. "Which answer makes you look worse?" Lena held his stare. Patrick took another step. "You cost me a great deal of money." "You gave it away," Lena said. One of Patrick's captains shifted. Graham moved closer to Vincent. Patrick's smile disappeared. "I was not speaking to you. You were looking at me. I was looking at a problem." Lena's hand tightened around her folded apron. The pain in her back had deepened into a hot line beneath her skin, but she refused to show it. Vincent turned slightly, placing himself between Patrick and Lena. The movement was small. It was also public, Patrick noticed. "So the promise stands," he said. Vincent's face revealed nothing. "My word stands." A murmur moved through the few guests still close enough to hear. Patrick looked almost pleased. A marriage would trap Vincent. A refusal would weaken him. Either outcome had value. "A man can survive losing money," Patrick said. "He cannot survive becoming a joke." His eyes moved to Lena again. "Neither can you." Vincent's voice lowered. "Go home, Patrick." Patrick adjusted one cuff. "You should decide what she is before someone else does." He walked toward the stairs. His captains followed. At the bottom of the steps, Patrick stopped and looked back. And Vincent. Vincent waited. If she disappears before the wedding, everyone will know why. Then Patrick was gone. The doors closed behind him. The room finally exhaled. Vincent looked at Lena. "You are coming with me. I have a locker upstairs. Graham will collect it." "I can collect my own things. You are not walking through that parking lot alone." Lena looked toward the ceiling as if she could see the frozen street above them. "You think Callahan left men outside?" "I know he did. I can handle Callahan's men." Vincent's gaze dropped briefly to the blood at her mouth. You can barely stand. Lena straightened. I am standing, for now. Graham returned carrying Lena's canvas bag. He held it by the straps, careful not to open it. Lena took it from him. Did you search it? Graham looked at Vincent. Vincent answered, No. Why not? Because if you had a gun, you would already be holding it. Lena slipped the bag over her shoulder. You say that like it is reassuring. Vincent turned toward the private exit. It was not meant to be. Outside, snow fell in thick sheets. 3 black vehicles waited behind the casino. Their engines were running, exhaust turning white in the cold. A security guard opened the rear door of the middle vehicle. Lena stopped beside it. Am I a guest or a prisoner? Vincent stood on the other side. That depends on how many lies you tell me. That is not an answer. It is the only one you are getting in the snow. Lena looked at the street. A dark sedan sat half a block away with its lights off. The windshield reflected the glow from the casino sign. No one moved inside. Lena entered the vehicle. Vincent followed. Graham took the front passenger seat. The driver pulled away before the door had fully sealed. For several blocks no one spoke. Atlantic City passed outside in fragments of wet light. Closed souvenir shops, empty hotels, a row of cheap motels facing the ocean. Snow collected on the boardwalk railings. Lena watched the side mirror. The sedan followed. It remained 3 cars behind, then 4. At the next intersection, it changed lanes when they changed. She looked toward Graham. Your friends are getting closer. Graham checked the mirror. His posture changed. They are not ours. The driver touched the communication device near his collar. The vehicle in front accelerated. The one behind moved across 2 lanes and blocked the intersection as the convoy turned inland. The sedan followed for another block. Then it disappeared. Vincent watched Lena rather than the road. How long did you know since the parking lot? And you waited until now to say something. I wanted to see whether your people noticed. Graham looked back. They did. After 6 turns, we were confirming. Lena faced the window again. That is what people say when they are late. Vincent almost smiled. You enjoy making enemies. No, enemies are expensive. You made several tonight. I only met one. Patrick Callahan. Lena looked at him. You. Vincent leaned back against the seat. You think I am your enemy? I think you put me in a cage because one of your men could not control his temper. You entered willingly. You made walking away more dangerous than staying. That sounds like a choice. It sounds like leverage. The city faded behind them. Large houses appeared along the dark shoreline of Margate, their windows glowing behind iron gates. The convoy turned onto a private road and stopped before a stone entrance guarded by cameras. The gates opened. Beyond them stood a mansion facing the Atlantic. It was not beautiful in any gentle way. Gray stone walls rose above the dunes. Tall windows reflected the black water. Security lights moved across the grounds in slow, deliberate arcs. Lena counted 4 cameras before the vehicle reached the front steps. She saw 2 guards near the garage, one on the upper balcony, and another standing behind a curtain in the east wing. Vincent noticed her eyes moving. Looking for an escape, I never enter a building without finding one. The vehicle stopped. Vincent opened the door himself. Cold wind rushed inside. Lena stepped onto the stone path. Her back protested. This time her knees nearly followed. Vincent caught her elbow. She pulled away at once. Do not! He released her. For a moment neither spoke. Then Vincent said, There is a doctor inside. I do not need one. You were thrown into steel. I noticed. You are bleeding. So is your champion. He is already with a doctor. Lena looked at the house. Then you have one available. The front doors opened before they reached them. A woman in her 60s stood in the marble foyer. She wore a dark dress and held herself with the calm authority of someone who had run the household longer than Vincent had ruled the family. Her eyes moved from Vincent to Lena, then to the blood on Lena's uniform. She did not react. Mr. Caruso, she said. Mrs. Bell, prepare the east guest room. Lena stopped. I am not staying. Vincent removed his coat. You are not going back to your apartment. You do not decide where I sleep. Callahan knows your face. Half the room recorded the fight. By morning, every criminal organization between here and New York will know your name. Lena Hart is not my name. The words escaped before she could stop them. The foyer became still. Mrs. Bell looked away politely. Graham did not. Vincent turned toward Lena. "No," he said. "I did not think it was." He led her through the house. The library occupied the rear corner overlooking the ocean. Dark shelves covered the walls. A fire burned behind black iron. On the desk sat a leather folder. Lena saw her photograph inside before Vincent opened it. The image came from her employee file at the breakwater. He placed the folder between them. "Sit. I prefer standing. You nearly fell outside. That was the snow. There was no ice on the path." Lena remained where she was. Vincent took the chair behind the desk. Graham stood near the door. Vincent opened the file. Lena Hart, born in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, 29 years old. Graduated from a community college that has no record of you. Social Security number issued 3 years ago. Birth certificate filed 17 years late. Lena said nothing. No tax history before New Jersey. No medical records before your first month in Atlantic City. No school photographs. No driver's license older than 36 months. Vincent turned another page. "You did not exist before 3 years ago. I existed, not as Lena Hart." She looked toward Graham. "You did all this during the drive," Graham answered. "We started when you broke Tyler's wrist. I did not break it." Then Tyler exaggerated. "He seems practiced." Vincent closed the file. "Is Lena Hart your name?" "It is now." "Were you law enforcement nor military number Federal Intelligence?" "No." "Then who taught you to fight?" Lena looked toward the fire. The flames reflected against the glass doors. For 1 second the library smelled like burning rubber. "A man who wanted my arm broken first." Vincent leaned forward. "That is not enough. It is all you need. My champion is in surgery. Patrick Callahan wants compensation. Every rival I have will spend the night asking whether you were planted in my club. I was carrying bourbon. You were watching Cole's knee. He was favoring it. Most people did not notice. Most people were drunk." Vincent studied her. "You understand weapons?" "I understand men with weapons." "You spotted surveillance before my security chief." Graham's expression hardened slightly. Lena met Vincent's eyes. "What do you want me to say the truth?" "The truth does not become safer because you ask calmly." Vincent rose. He moved around the desk without hurry. Lena measured the distance between them. 6 feet. 4. He stopped before entering her reach. "Patrick was right about one thing," Vincent said. "I need to know what you are." Lena's voice remained low. "I am the woman you tried to humiliate, and before tonight a woman trying not to be found. By whom?" She did not answer. Vincent looked toward Graham. "Leave us." Graham did not move. Vincent outside. Graham's eyes shifted to Lena. She could see the objection. Vincent repeated the order. Graham left and closed the door. Now only the fire separated the silence. Vincent returned to the desk and poured 2 glasses of water. He placed one near Lena. She did not touch it. "I am not going to threaten you," he said. "You already did. At the club and in the car. That was not a threat. You have an unusual definition." Vincent sat on the edge of the desk. "My father built his business by lying to everyone. Friends, enemies, family. By the time he died, no one believed him even when he told the truth." Lena waited. "I rebuilt the family on one rule," Vincent continued. "My word is worth more than my money. Tonight I gave it in front of every person who profits from believing it. You were laughing. It does not matter. It mattered to me." His eyes met hers. For the first time she saw something beneath the control. Not regret. Recognition. "I know," he said. Lena looked down at her hands. A thin cut crossed her palm from the broken glass near the cage. Blood had dried along the edge. She heard herself speak before deciding to. "I worked for a shipping company in Mobile." Vincent remained still. "Briar Hill Logistics," she continued. "We moved industrial equipment, agricultural machinery, medical supplies. That was what appeared on the manifests, and what was inside the containers: cash, weapons, sometimes people." Vincent's expression did not change. Who owned it? Warren Vale. The name landed differently. Vincent knew it. Lena saw that immediately. "You have heard of him?" "I have heard stories. Most of them are true." Warren Vale controlled a network that ran from the Gulf Coast through private ports in the Caribbean. He did not build his reputation through public violence. He built it by making witnesses vanish before anyone knew there had been a crime. Lena moved toward the window. Black water struck the shore beyond the glass. I was not a soldier, she said. I handled routes, fuel costs, port schedules, customs inspections. I could look at 20 shipping records and tell which one would be searched. You helped him move weapons. At first I did not know, and later knowing did not make leaving possible. Vincent watched her reflection. How did you learn to fight? Briar Hill hired security contractors. One of them thought everyone should know how to survive an extraction. An extraction. A polite word for being taken somewhere you do not want to go. She rubbed her thumb over the cut in her palm. I learned enough to make men underestimate me only once. What happened 3 years ago, Lena closed her eyes. Rain across a windshield, red lights in the mirror, a voice on the phone telling her to keep driving. I found records that did not belong in our system, payments to officials, names of employees marked for removal. Families, too. You copied them, yes. Why? Because one of the names belonged to a woman who sat beside me for 4 years. Vincent said nothing. Her car went into the river 2 days later. Warren called it an accident, and you knew it was not. I knew because I had scheduled the vehicle that followed her home. The confession left the room colder. Lena continued. I copied everything I could, routes, accounts, contacts. Then I left. Vale found you, before I reached the state line. She touched the back of her shoulder. They fired through the rear window. 2 bullets hit me. My car went off the road and caught fire. How did you survive? There was water beyond the guardrail, marsh grass, darkness, and they believed you burned. They found blood in the car, not a body. Warren prefers certainty, but he also prefers speed. I gave him enough evidence to choose the easier answer. Vincent's gaze sharpened. Where are the files? Lena turned from the window. That is not part of the story. It is the most important part. To you, to anyone who knows what Warren Vale is. If I told you, they would become yours. You are standing in my house. That does not make me one of your possessions. Vincent's jaw tightened. No, it does not. The answer surprised her. He walked back behind the desk and opened a drawer. Lena's body tensed. Vincent removed a document, not a weapon. He placed it beside her file. At sunrise, Patrick Callahan will begin making demands. He lost $4 million. Cole will be unable to fight for months. My captains will question why I allowed a waitress to embarrass us. You allowed Tyler to embarrass you. That distinction will not matter to them. It should. Power is not built on what should matter. Lena looked at the document. What is that A solution? She did not touch it. Vincent opened the first page. It was a marriage agreement. Lena stared at him. You already had this prepared. My attorney sent a template. During our conversation, Graham works quickly. You cannot be serious. I gave my word. You gave it as a joke. And the room believed it. Lena laughed once, without humor. So, this is about your reputation. Everything in my world is about reputation. And what do I get? Protection. I have protected myself for 3 years. Tonight your face was recorded by more than 100 people. If Warren Vale has a single contact in this city, he will know you are alive before morning. Lena thought of the sedan. You believe he was behind the car. I believe Patrick will sell your identity to anyone willing to weaken me. Vincent moved the agreement toward her. As my wife, you become difficult to touch. Hurting you means challenging the Caruso family publicly. You want to turn me into a shield. I want to turn the promise into strategy. You want everyone to believe tonight was planned. Yes, at least you are honest. I am when it is useful. Lena read the first page. The agreement was clean, formal, and entirely unacceptable. She picked up a pen. Vincent watched as she crossed out half the document. What are you doing? Fixing it. She turned to a blank page. Separate bedrooms, separate finances. You do not enter my room without permission. Marriage does not give you ownership of my body. Vincent's expression became unreadable. Lena continued. I get access to an isolated server. No connection to your primary network. I choose the encryption. Graham can inspect the hardware before installation. For what purpose? To monitor old accounts and digital traps. You left traps behind. I planned for the possibility that Warren would discover the truth. Vincent looked at her differently now, not like a mystery, like an asset. Lena hated that she recognized the shift. Third, she said, you clear my debts. Vincent glanced toward her file. Medical bills, student loans, rent. You investigated my finances. I investigated everything. You will also place money into an account in my name. How much enough that I can leave without asking you? His eyes stayed on hers. You want an escape fund. I want the ability to say no while standing near the door. Vincent took the pen from her hand. He wrote a number. Lena looked at it. It was more money than she had earned in the past 5 years. That is excessive. So is marrying a woman who broke my champion's arm. She ignored the remark. 1 year. Vincent stopped writing. The marriage lasts 1 year. After that, either of us may end it unless an active threat makes separation dangerous. You are already planning to leave. I plan every exit. He leaned back. Anything else Lena thought of Tyler's hand around her wrist? Yes. Vincent waited. Tyler Briggs never comes near me again. Something changed in his face. Not surprise, decision. Done. You did not hesitate. He drew a weapon in my club after I ordered him to stop. That was not why. No. Vincent signed the revised page. Then he turned it toward her. Lena read every line. Twice. The fire cracked behind them. Outside, waves struck the shore with steady force. She had spent 3 years running from men who believed power meant ownership. Now she was considering marriage to one of them. But Vincent had accepted every boundary without argument. He had not touched her when she pulled away. He had not searched her bag. He had asked for the truth, and when she gave him part of it, he had offered terms instead of a cage. That did not make him safe. It made him predictable. For Lena, predictable had value. She signed. Vincent looked at her name beneath his. Anything else, Mrs. Caruso? Do not call me that yet. When should I? When I decide the name fits. A knock sounded at the library door. Graham entered without waiting. His face was harder than before. He carried a tablet. Vincent. What is it? Graham placed the screen on the desk. A still image from the fight filled it. Lena stood in the cage with Cole's arm locked against her hip. Her face was clear beneath the white lights. The image had been posted on an encrypted forum used by smugglers, brokers, and private security contractors. Beneath it was a single line of text. The ghost from Mobile is alive. The room seemed to tilt. Lena read the words again. Her hand moved instinctively toward the back of her shoulder. Vincent looked from the screen to her. How long before Vale sees this? Lena's voice came out quiet. He already has. Vincent turned to Graham. Double the guards. Graham glanced toward the hallway. To keep people out. Vincent's eyes settled on the dark windows overlooking the ocean. To find out who is already inside. The words remained in the library after Graham left. Lena stood beside the desk staring at the photograph on the tablet. The white cage lights had captured every detail of her face. The set of her jaw, the blood near her mouth, the old instinct in her eyes. 3 years of careful silence had ended beneath a camera lens. Vincent closed the tablet. You need rest. I need access to that post. Graham is tracing it. Graham does not know where to look. He knows enough. No one knows enough. Vincent studied her for a moment, then opened the library door. Come with me. Lena followed him through the house. The Caruso estate was quieter than the breakwater, but not less dangerous. Cameras watched every corridor. Men stood at both staircases. Doors that appeared decorative had reinforced hinges and steel beneath the wood. Nothing in the house existed without a purpose. Vincent led her to the east wing and stopped before a pair of carved doors. This suite is yours. Lena entered alone. The room was larger than her apartment. Tall windows faced the ocean. A fire burned in a stone fireplace. Fresh clothes had been placed across a chair, each item chosen by someone who knew her size but not her taste. A suitcase would have looked small in the center of the room. Her canvas bag looked almost insulting. Vincent remained outside the threshold. Lena noticed. You are not coming in. You told me not to. The contract begins after the wedding. Your boundaries began before it. She said nothing. Vincent nodded toward the bathroom. There is a medical kit inside. Mrs. Bell will bring food. I am not hungry. You have not eaten since before the fight. Lena looked at him. You notice too much. So do you. He left the door open behind him. Lena crossed the room and checked the windows first. Locked. The balcony overlooked the ocean, but 2 guards patrolled the garden below. A service stairwell stood behind a panel near the dressing room. The bathroom vent was wide enough for a listening device, but too narrow for an escape. She found no cameras inside. That surprised her more than finding one would have. Only after she had inspected the room twice did she remove her uniform. The skin along her back had turned purple. An old scar near her shoulder had split open, leaving a thin line of blood beneath the fabric. She cleaned the wound herself. When she looked in the mirror, the woman staring back no longer resembled a waitress. Her glasses were gone. Her hair had fallen loose. The controlled blankness she wore in public had cracked. She looked tired. She looked exposed. She looked alive. Lena slept for less than 2 hours. At 7 in the morning, she woke to the sound of waves striking the seawall. For several seconds, she did not know where she was. Her hand reached beneath the pillow for the knife she usually kept there. There was nothing. She sat upright, breath tight in her chest. Then she remembered the cage, the promise, the contract, the message beneath her photograph. A knock sounded at the door. Lena rose and crossed the room without making a sound. "Who is it, Mrs. Bell?" Lena opened the door. The older woman stood in the hallway with a breakfast tray and a folded envelope. "I brought coffee," she said. "Mr. Caruso said you would refuse food unless someone placed it directly in front of you. He assumes a great deal. He is often correct. It makes him difficult to live with." Lena stepped aside. Mrs. Bell carried the tray to the small table near the windows. She did not look around the room. She did not ask questions about the blood-stained uniform folded on the chair. She placed the envelope beside the coffee. "This arrived for you." "From whom, Mr. Reed?" Lena opened it. Inside were confirmation letters from the hospital, the collection company, and the bank holding her student loans. Every balance showed 0. There was also a receipt from her landlord. Paid in full. Lena read the pages twice. The numbers did not change. "Mrs." Bell watched her quietly. "He moves quickly," Lena said. "Yes. Does he always buy people before breakfast?" Mrs. Bell's expression remained calm. "He pays what he owes. That is not the same thing." "No," she said. "It is not." Lena set the papers down. Relief should have come first. Instead, she felt anger. Debt had followed her through every city. It had forced her into night shifts and cheap apartments. It had made choices for her when fear was not enough. Now Vincent had erased it in a single morning. The freedom felt too much like dependence. Lena found him in his office. He stood beside a long table covered with shipping reports, ledgers, and photographs. Graham was speaking to 2 men near the far wall. Vincent looked up as she entered. "You should knock. You entered my financial life without knocking." The 2 men near the wall went silent. Graham dismissed them with a glance. When the door closed, Lena placed the payment confirmations on the table. "You moved too fast." Vincent looked at the papers. "You asked me to pay them. I did not ask you to make me feel purchased." His expression hardened slightly. "I fulfilled the terms you wrote. You did more than that. You cleared everything. That was the agreement. The agreement was signed less than 6 hours ago. You wanted me to wait. I wanted time to understand what accepting it would mean." Vincent closed the ledger in front of him. "It means you no longer owe strangers money. It means I owe you." "No. Yes." He stepped closer. "You do not owe me gratitude. You do not owe me obedience. You do not owe me anything that is not written in that contract." Lena looked toward Graham. "Do your men know that?" Vincent followed her gaze. Then he pressed a button on the desk. A moment later, the office door opened. 3 captains entered, followed by the head of the household security team. Vincent spoke without raising his voice. "Lena's orders concerning her own security carry the same authority as mine. Her room is private. Her property is private. No one touches her without permission." One captain shifted his weight. Vincent noticed. "Is there a problem?" "No." "Then make sure everyone understands." The men left. Graham remained. His face revealed what discipline kept his voice from saying. Lena looked at him. "You disagree. I do not know you. That makes us equal. I know what you told Vincent. You know what he chose to repeat." Graham turned to Vincent. "You are giving her authority before we confirm anything." Vincent answered calmly. "I am giving her control over herself." Graham looked toward Lena again. "That is how it begins." Lena folded the payment letters. What begins people entering this house and believing boundaries make them trustworthy." Vincent's voice cooled. "Enough." Graham left without another word. Lena waited until the door closed. "He is loyal to you." "Yes. He does not trust me. He should not. Neither should you. Vincent looked at her. I do not. The honesty settled between them. Later that morning, a jeweler arrived carrying 3 black cases. Vincent found Lena in the sitting room reviewing photographs of the breakwater. She had been tracing the angle from which her image had been taken. The jeweler opened the first case. A diamond the size of a coin reflected the light. Lena looked at Vincent. No, you have not tried it. I do not need to wear a chandelier to know it is impractical. The jeweler cleared his throat. Vincent opened the second case. A gold ring surrounded by smaller diamonds rested on black velvet. Lena shook her head. The third case contained several simpler bands. She selected a platinum ring with a low black stone set close to the surface. The jeweler appeared disappointed. Vincent watched as Lena slipped it onto her finger. She closed her hand. Nothing pressed against her skin. Nothing caught on the knuckle. Why that one, he asked. I can fight in it. The jeweler looked away. A brief smile touched Vincent's mouth. Then it is the right ring. Lena removed it and returned it to the case. It is still only a symbol. Symbols are useful. They are also dangerous. Only when people believe them. People kill for symbols. Vincent closed the case. People kill for less. By afternoon, Graham had arranged a secure server. The equipment had been installed in a room beneath the east wing. The network stood separate from the rest of the house, connected only through a line Lena had personally inspected. Graham waited near the door while she checked every device. You think I placed something inside, he said. I think you would be careless not to. That is not an answer. It is the only one you are getting underground. Graham recognized the words from the previous night. He did not smile. Lena activated the system. Old accounts appeared across the screen. Shipping companies that no longer existed. Email addresses attached to dead identities. Port records from Mobile, New Orleans, Savannah, and Baltimore. She entered a sequence of passwords from memory. A warning appeared. One dormant name had been searched less than 8 hours earlier. Evelyn Cross. The identity she had used at Briar Hill. Lena stared at the screen. The search originated from a warehouse company in Newark. Graham stepped closer. You know it? It belongs to Patrick Callahan. Are you certain I built the routing structure he copied? Graham looked toward the search history. So, Callahan knows who you were. Or someone wants us to think he does. You expect another player. I always expect another player. She opened a second file. A Briar Hill shipping account had also been accessed. The location was hidden behind multiple servers, but the timing was clear. The search had occurred 12 minutes after her photograph appeared online. Warren Vale had seen her. A chill moved across her skin. Graham noticed. You are afraid of him? Yes. The admission surprised them both. Graham folded his arms. Vincent needs to know everything. He knows enough. That is what people say before someone dies. Lena turned toward him. Warren does not attack the place you are watching. He attacks the person who believes they are safe. Then why stay here? Because running has stopped working. That night, Lena woke with blood on her hand. The wound along her back had opened again. She reached for the glass of water beside the bed, but pain caught beneath her shoulder. The glass slipped and shattered across the floor. A knock sounded moments later. Lena, Vincent. She pulled the sheet around herself. Do not come in. Silence. Then his voice came through the door. Are you hurt? No, you dropped something. I know. Another pause. I am staying here. Why? Because you sound like you are lying. Lena closed her eyes. The pain had become sharp enough to make breathing difficult. She opened the door. Vincent stood alone in the hallway. No guards, no weapon visible. His eyes moved to the blood on her palm, then to the dark stain spreading across the back of her shirt. He did not cross the threshold. There is a medical kit in the bathroom, she said. I know. Bring it. Vincent entered only after she stepped aside. He placed the kit on the table and opened it. Lena tried to reach the wound herself. Pain stopped her. Vincent looked at her. Do you need help? She waited for curiosity, for pity, for possession disguised as concern. She found none. Only patience. Lena turned her back and lowered the fabric from one shoulder. The scars were visible beneath the lamp. 2 circular marks near the shoulder blade. A long surgical line crossing the center of her back. Vincent did not speak. He cleaned the reopened wound carefully. His hands were steady. Lena watched his reflection in the window. You get one question. Vincent pressed clean gauze against the scar. Did the man who did this survive? Yes. He secured the bandage. Then I will save my question. Lena turned. Vincent stood close enough that she could see the exhaustion beneath his eyes. You do not want to know how it happened. I know enough. You always want to know everything, not when the answer belongs to you. The room became very quiet. Vincent closed the medical kit. I will leave. Lena looked toward the open door. Thank you. He paused. It was the first gratitude she had offered him. Vincent inclined his head and stepped into the hallway. The wedding took place the following morning. Dawn spread pale light across the Atlantic. Snow covered the chapel steps and softened the stone walls. Only 4 people attended. Graham stood beside Vincent. Mrs. Bell sat in the first row. An attorney held the final copy of the contract. The officiant waited beneath a plain wooden cross. Lena wore an ivory suit chosen for movement, not beauty. Vincent wore black. They stood before the windows as the ocean moved behind them. The officiant began with traditional vows. Vincent interrupted politely. We wrote our own. He turned toward Lena. I promise protection without possession. I promise honesty when silence would place you in danger. I promise that no person in my house will mistake your presence for permission. Lena felt Mrs. Bell watching her. She looked at Vincent. I promise loyalty without obedience. I promise to protect what we build without surrendering who I am. I promise that if I leave, you will hear it from me. The officiant nodded. Vincent took the platinum ring. Before sliding it onto her finger, he asked, too tight. Lena turned the band once. No. She placed a simple ring on his hand. They were declared husband and wife. Vincent waited. Lena gave the smallest nod. He kissed her cheek. Nothing more. The restraint moved through her more deeply than force would have. Outside the chapel, Graham handed Vincent a folder. Your captains are waiting for dinner tonight. Vincent opened it. They can wait. Lena looked toward him. No. He closed the folder. You do not owe them an appearance. They need to see whether I hide behind you, and I do not. That evening, 8 Caruso captains sat around the long dining table. Conversation stopped when Lena entered beside Vincent. She wore black. The ring caught the light. One captain leaned back and smiled. So this is real. Lena took her seat. Vincent did not answer. Another man lifted his wine. Will Mrs. Caruso attend business meetings now? Several men laughed. Lena picked up the shipping invoice beside his plate. She read the first page while the laughter continued. Then she placed it in front of him. You lost $90,000 on your Camden route last month. The man frowned. That is impossible. You paid 2 security teams for the same shipment. One company does not exist. The address belongs to an empty laundromat. The room fell silent. The captain looked at Vincent. Vincent looked at Lena. She continued. Either someone is stealing from you or you are stealing from him. No one laughed now. Vincent gathered the remaining invoices and slid them across the table toward her. Lena placed one hand over the stack. It was not trust. It was not love. It was recognition. By the end of dinner, every captain in the room understood the same thing. Vincent Caruso had not brought home a frightened waitress. He had brought home a woman who could see the cracks beneath his empire, and for the first time Lena wore the name without rejecting it. Mrs. Caruso. The name followed Lena through the house long after dinner ended. It appeared in the way the guards stood straighter when she passed, in the way the kitchen staff lowered their voices, in the way Vincent's captains looked at her as if they had not yet decided whether she was temporary dangerous or both. Lena did not ask anyone to use the name. She did not correct them either. 3 days later, the Sterling Hotel rose above the Atlantic City boardwalk beneath a sky the color of steel. The building had survived a fire, 2 bankruptcies, and a federal investigation. Its owners had restored the marble floors, gold ceilings, and crystal chandeliers. But the hotel still carried the feeling of a place where secrets had lived longer than the people who kept them. Black cars lined the entrance. Men in tailored coats stepped onto the red carpet with women dressed in silk and diamonds. Cameras flashed behind velvet ropes. Reporters shouted questions no one intended to answer honestly. The official event was a charity gala for urban redevelopment. The real purpose was simpler. Every powerful criminal organization between Philadelphia and New York had come to measure Vincent Caruso after the humiliation at the breakwater. Lena stood in front of the mirror in her room while Mrs. Bell fastened the back of her gown. The dress was black, fitted through the waist with a high collar that concealed the scars near her shoulders. The fabric moved easily around her legs. Nothing caught at her wrists. Nothing restricted her breathing. Mrs. Bell stepped back. "You look beautiful." Lena turned slightly and tested the movement of the skirt. "I look prepared. In this family, the difference is small." Lena looked at herself again. The black diamond ring rested low against her finger. It still felt unfamiliar. Not heavy. Present. A knock sounded at the open door. Vincent stood in the hallway wearing a black dinner jacket. His hair was combed away from his face. The scar near his chin appeared sharper beneath the light. His gaze moved over Lena without hurry. For one brief second, the room felt smaller. Mrs. Bell collected the empty garment bag. "I will leave you both to argue about punctuality." She walked past Vincent. He waited until her footsteps disappeared. "You chose black. So did you. It suits you. Because it is practical, because everyone else will be trying to shine." Lena turned toward the dressing table and picked up a small evening bag. Inside were a phone, a compact medical kit, and a thin ceramic blade that would not trigger most metal detectors. Vincent noticed the weight of the bag. Armed, prepared, he extended his arm. Lena looked at it. "Is this required?" "No." She placed her hand on his sleeve. "Then try not to look pleased." Vincent opened the door. "I do not look pleased. That is the problem." They descended the main staircase together. Graham waited in the foyer with 4 security men. His eyes moved over Lena's dress shoes and bag. "You checked the exits at the hotel?" she asked. "Twice. Service quarters? Yes. Roof access? Yes. Kitchen loading dock?" Graham paused. "Once." "Check it again." He looked toward Vincent. Vincent adjusted one cuff. "You heard her," Graham signaled to one of the guards. Lena felt the shift immediately. No argument, no hesitation. The authority Vincent had given her at dinner was no longer private. It had become real. They left the estate beneath a cold evening sky. Inside the armored car, the city moved beyond tinted glass. Casino signs reflected across wet streets. Snow had stopped falling, but ice clung to the sidewalks. Vincent reviewed messages on his phone. Lena watched the traffic behind them. A black sedan turned away after 2 blocks. A delivery van remained 3 vehicles back for nearly a mile. "Blue van," she said. Graham checked the mirror from the front seat. "Hotel catering. The logo is printed too cleanly." Graham spoke into his radio. A security vehicle moved between the van and their car. The van turned at the next intersection. No one spoke for several seconds. Vincent put his phone away. "You think Callahan will try something tonight? I think Patrick never spends money without expecting a return. He lost $4 million. He spent $4 million discovering your weakness." Vincent looked at her. "And what did he find? That your reputation controls you." His face remained calm. "That is not a discovery. It is when everyone else sees it. You believe marrying you made me look weak. I believe explaining the marriage would. So we do not explain it." Lena looked toward the hotel growing larger ahead. "That will not stop them from asking." "No." What will Vincent met her eyes? "You." The Sterling Hotel ballroom glowed behind tall windows. Security opened the car door. Sound rushed in at once. Cameras clicked. Reporters called Vincent's name. A woman near the entrance asked whether the marriage had been planned before the fight. Vincent stepped onto the carpet and turned back toward Lena. His hand remained extended. She placed her fingers in his. The camera flashes intensified. Lena felt the old instinct to turn away, to hide her face, to lower her eyes. She did none of those things. She stepped beside Vincent and looked directly toward the cameras. The moment lasted only a few seconds. It felt longer than the fight. Inside the hotel lobby opened into a grand staircase beneath a painted ceiling. Waiters carried champagne through clusters of politicians, attorneys, business owners, and men whose names never appeared in business records. Conversation softened when Vincent entered. Then people noticed Lena. The silence changed. It was not complete, but it traveled through the room in waves. Some guests stared openly, others pretended not to. A woman wearing emeralds whispered something to her husband. He answered without taking his eyes off Lena. Vincent placed one hand lightly against the center of her back. The touch was careful, high enough to avoid the wound, gentle enough to be removed if she shifted away. Lena did not. They entered the ballroom. Crystal chandeliers reflected in the polished floor. An orchestra played near the far wall. Round tables surrounded a central dance floor. Beyond the windows, the Atlantic stretched into darkness. Patrick Callahan stood near the bar. He raised his glass when he saw them. Lena felt Vincent's hand become still. "Do not react to him," Vincent said quietly. "I was about to say the same thing." They moved through the crowd. Vincent greeted a state senator, a union president, and the owner of 3 shipping companies. Each introduction followed the same pattern. Vincent Caruso, his wife, Lena Caruso. Nothing more. No explanation of the cage, no apology for the wager, no mention of Cole Maddox. The absence became its own statement. Lena shook hands and remembered everything. The senator's palm was damp. The union president avoided Vincent's eyes. One shipping owner wore a watch connected to Patrick Callahan's accountant. Across the ballroom, 2 men dressed as hotel security carried radios different from the rest of the staff. Lena leaned closer to Vincent. "The guard beside the west balcony is not hotel security." Vincent did not look. "How do you know different earpiece? Wrong shoes." He lifted his glass toward Graham. The signal was almost invisible. Graham moved away. Lena continued watching the room. Patrick had placed men near both main exits. None stood directly in front of the doors. That would have been too obvious. They stood close enough to reach them first. "Callahan is controlling the exits," Lena said. Vincent smiled at a passing judge. "So are we. Not all of them." His eyes shifted toward the service corridor. "You checked." "I always check." The orchestra changed songs. Couples moved toward the dance floor. Vincent was drawn into a conversation with 2 older men from New York. Lena remained beside him until a woman in a silver dress approached and touched Vincent's arm with practiced familiarity. "Vincent, you have been hiding." Her eyes moved to Lena. Or perhaps not. Vincent's expression cooled. "Claire." Claire smiled at Lena. "I knew Vincent would marry eventually. I simply imagined there would be more warning." Lena took a glass of champagne from a passing tray. So did he. Claire's smile tightened. "You must be very brave." No, I am observant. People confuse the two." Vincent covered a laugh with a sip of bourbon. Claire excused herself moments later. As she walked away, Lena said, "Former lover, former mistake. She still expects access. She will be disappointed." Lena looked at him. "Because of the contract, because I said so." The answer settled somewhere she did not want to examine. Patrick approached before she could respond. He came alone. His silver hair caught the chandelier light. His tuxedo was perfectly fitted. He carried no visible weapon. Men like Patrick rarely needed to. "Vincent." "Patrick." Patrick looked at Lena. "Mrs. Caruso." She raised her glass. "Mr. Callahan, I wanted to congratulate you properly. Our last conversation lacked ceremony. It lacked manners." Patrick smiled. "Atlantic City has been talking about nothing else. Atlantic City needs better hobbies." His eyes moved toward her ring. "So the marriage is real?" Vincent answered. "Yes." Patrick ignored him. "I wondered whether the bride would survive long enough to attend her own celebration." Lena took a small sip of champagne. "I wondered whether you would recover from losing $4 million. A muscle moved in Patrick's jaw. "You have a sharp tongue." "You noticed after the broken arm," Patrick laughed. Several nearby guests looked toward them. He offered Lena his hand. "Dance with me." Vincent's face became still. Lena looked at Patrick's hand. "No. Afraid I dance badly, I'm afraid you mistake proximity for permission." Patrick lowered his hand. "Your husband and I have business to discuss." "Then discuss it. In private. Nothing involving me will be private." Patrick looked toward Vincent. "You let her speak for you." Now Vincent's voice was calm. "She speaks for herself." The answer traveled farther than its volume should have allowed. People nearby stopped pretending not to listen. Patrick took another sip. "Very modern, very necessary," Lena said. Patrick stepped closer. His voice lowered. "You cost me $4 million. You keep saying that as if I took it from your pocket. You entered a fight no one believed you could win. That sounds like your failure of imagination. Men have died for less." Lena met his eyes. Men like you kill for less. There is a difference. Patrick's smile vanished. For the first time, she saw the anger beneath his composure. You think Vincent can protect you forever? Lena moved closer until only a few inches separated them. I only needed his protection until you stood close enough to threaten me yourself. Patrick's eyes sharpened. Before he could answer, a bell sounded from the stage. The orchestra stopped. A hotel official welcomed the guests and thanked them for supporting the Redevelopment Foundation. Applause followed. Patrick stepped back. We will finish this conversation. Lena watched him walk toward his table. No, she said quietly. He will. Vincent looked at her. What did you see, fear? In Patrick, in the men watching him. The formal dinner began. Vincent and Lena sat at the central table with Graham, 3 Caruso captains, Patrick Callahan, 2 of his senior men, and several public officials. The arrangement was not accidental. Every seat represented an alliance, a rivalry, or a debt. Lena barely touched her food. Patrick spoke politely to the senator beside him. He laughed at the right moments. He praised the hotel restoration. Then dessert arrived. Patrick placed his napkin on the table. Since we are all among friends, there is a matter I would like to address. Conversation around the table stopped. Vincent leaned back, then address it. Patrick looked toward the surrounding tables. His voice carried easily. The fight at the breakwater created questions. Vincent said nothing. Cole Maddox was undefeated. Men invested millions based on the integrity of your house. Then an unknown waitress defeated him in 11 seconds. Lena felt the room listening. Patrick continued. I am requesting a second match. One of Vincent's captains shifted in his seat. Patrick looked at Lena. Same conditions, neutral location, independent officials. Lena set down her fork. No, Patrick appeared unsurprised. Then compensation is appropriate. How much? Vincent asked. My losses plus control of the Gardner's Basin route for 12 months. Graham's expression hardened. The Gardner's Basin warehouses controlled access to several shipping lines. Giving Patrick that route would weaken the Caruso family far beyond $4 million. Vincent spoke quietly. No, Patrick smiled. Then perhaps everyone should know why. He lifted one hand. A man near the wall approached carrying a black folder. Patrick opened it and removed a photograph. He placed it on the table in front of Lena. The image showed a younger woman standing beside a cargo terminal in Mobile, Alabama. Her hair was longer. Her face was thinner. A white identification card hung from her neck. The name beneath the photograph read, Evelyn Cross. Lena felt the blood leave her hands. Vincent looked at the image, then at her. Not anger, recognition. He understood that Patrick had found the name she had not yet given him. Patrick watched both of them. Your wife was not a waitress before she came to Atlantic City. The senator at the table stared at his plate. No one moved. Patrick lifted the photograph so nearby guests could see it. She worked for Briar Hill Logistics. The name moved through the room like cold air. Several older men recognized it. Patrick continued. Briar Hill did not transport furniture. It moved weapons and cash for Warren Vale. Vincent's voice remained controlled. You have made your point. I have not begun. Patrick looked at Lena. Warren Vale has offered a considerable reward for information leading to Evelyn Cross. Lena held his gaze. That is not my name. It was, not anymore. You do not erase history by changing a name. No. You erase history by surviving the people who wrote it. A murmur passed through the tables. Patrick's captains exchanged glances. He noticed. His smile returned. Your wife belongs to people far more dangerous than you, Vincent. Lena stood. The movement silenced the room. I never belonged to them. Patrick looked up at her. You carried their money. I carried numbers. You built their routes. I learned where they broke. You helped them. Yes. The answer stunned the room more than denial would have. Lena looked toward the surrounding tables. I worked for Warren Vale. I built shipping patterns that made him rich. I also copied the records that could destroy him. Vincent's eyes moved to her. She had never told him that clearly. Patrick rose as well. You expect us to believe you escaped Warren Vale alone? Know who helped you, his arrogance. A few people laughed nervously. Patrick did not. He turned toward Vincent. This woman is a threat to every organization in this room. She knows routes, names, accounts. You brought her into your house and placed a ring on her hand. Vincent stood, and yet you are the only man demanding she be punished. Patrick's face hardened. I am demanding accountability. Lena looked toward the orchestra. Stop playing. The conductor hesitated. Vincent nodded once. The music ended. Every conversation in the ballroom died with it. Lena reached into her evening bag and removed her phone. Patrick laughed. What is this accountability? She touched the screen. A list of corporations appeared. Harbor North Holdings, Camden Freight Services, Belmere Consulting. Patrick's expression changed so slightly that most people missed it. Lena did not. All three companies were created in Delaware, she said. All three receive payments from Callahan-controlled trucking routes. None have employees. None own property. None provide services. Patrick's captains looked toward him. Lena continued. Over the past 18 months, $7.3 million moved through those companies into accounts controlled by your private accountant. Patrick's voice became quiet. Careful. You told the room you lost $4 million because I entered a fight. She looked toward the men seated beside him. You did not lose your own money. You lost theirs. One captain pushed his chair back. Patrick turned toward him. Sit down. The man remained standing. Lena opened another file. The $4 million came from a reserve account intended to cover legal expenses and family payments. The captain's face changed. My brother's wife was told the fund was empty. Patrick looked at Lena. You have no idea what you are discussing. I know the account number. She read the final 4 digits aloud. One of Patrick's men swore under his breath. Lena moved around the table. No one stopped her. You asked for the Gardner's Basin route because your own captains would discover the missing money by the end of the quarter. You needed a new revenue source before the books closed. Patrick's control began to crack. You accessed private financial information. I followed public records, court filings, port invoices, union reports. You hid the theft behind companies no one bothered to compare. She stopped across from him. You assumed the people beneath you would never look up. The words landed harder than the numbers. Patrick's hand tightened around the back of his chair. You think this protects you, no? Lena lifted her phone. This does. Every phone at the table vibrated. Then phones across the ballroom began to light. Patrick's captains looked down. Each had received an email containing the name of Harbor North Holdings, a transaction date, and the amount transferred. Patrick stared at Lena. What did you do? I prepared the records for release. You sent them. I sent the first page. His voice dropped, and the rest scheduled. A man behind Patrick reached inside his jacket. Lena saw the motion reflected in a silver serving tray. Her eyes shifted. Vincent moved at the same instant. He caught the man's wrist beneath the edge of the table. Graham stood. Caruso guards appeared near the ballroom doors. Patrick's men moved toward their weapons. The senator dropped his glass. It struck the floor and shattered. For 3 seconds, the entire room stood one breath away from blood. Lena did not move. If anyone draws a weapon, she said, the complete records go to every captain in this room, 3 reporters and 2 federal investigators. Patrick looked at the man whose wrist Vincent held. Let go. The man slowly removed his empty hand from his jacket. Vincent released him. No one sat down. Patrick's face had turned pale with anger. You are bluffing. Lena's phone vibrated. A second later, every one of Patrick's captains received another message, the first bank statement. One captain opened it. His eyes moved across the numbers. Then he looked at Patrick. Lena placed the phone on the table. That was the warning. Patrick stared at the screen. The ballroom remained silent. His men were no longer watching Lena. They were watching him. That was the real defeat. Not the money, not the threat. The loss of certainty. Patrick slowly lifted his glass. His hand did not shake, but the effort required to keep it steady showed in his wrist. To Mrs. Caruso. No one answered at first. Then one of Vincent's captains raised his glass. Another followed. Across the ballroom, more glasses lifted. Lena picked up hers. To men who know when they have lost. Patrick drank. His eyes promised that the matter was not over, but he had no move left in that room. He placed the glass down and walked toward the exit. His captains followed, though not as closely as before. The men stationed near the doors moved with them. The exits opened. Only when Patrick disappeared into the lobby did the room begin to breathe again. The orchestra waited. Vincent looked toward the conductor. Play. Music returned slowly. Conversations began in low voices. No one resumed eating. Vincent turned to Lena. You did not tell me about the files. You did not ask the right question. I asked where they were. I did not use Warren's files. What did you use Patrick's vanity? A faint smile appeared on Vincent's face. You found all of that in 3 days. I found the first company in 20 minutes. The rest followed. Graham approached. You sent information to federal investigators, no? He stared at her. Lena picked up her phone. I scheduled messages to inactive addresses. Patrick did not know that. Vincent laughed quietly. Graham looked less amused. That was a dangerous bluff. It was not a bluff. His captains received enough to destroy him themselves. Graham considered the answer. Then he nodded once. It was not trust. It was respect. Vincent held out his hand. Lena looked at it. What, dance with me? This is not the time. Every person in the room is waiting to see whether we survived the conversation. We did. They need to see it. Lena glanced around the ballroom. He was right. Guests watched from every table. Vincent had defended her identity. She had defended his empire. Now the room needed an image simple enough to remember. Lena placed her hand in his. They walked onto the dance floor. The orchestra shifted into a slower piece. Vincent placed one hand at her waist. He waited before pulling her closer. Lena allowed the distance between them to narrow. You planned this? He asked. Patrick approaching me. The financial records. I planned for him to make a demand, and if he had not, I would have kept the information. Vincent guided her across the floor. You keep weapons everywhere, only where people hide weakness. His hand remained careful against her back. Lena noticed. You remembered the wound. I remember what matters. She looked toward his face. That is a dangerous thing to say to your wife. Why she might believe you. Vincent's eyes held hers. Do you? Lena did not answer. They turned beneath the chandeliers. Around them the room watched the mafia boss dance with the waitress who had broken his champion's arm, exposed his rival, and stood beside him without lowering her eyes. Vincent leaned closer. You were right. About what marrying you made my enemies curious. Lena looked toward Patrick's empty table. You gave me half of them. No. Vincent's hand tightened slightly at her waist. I gave mine a second reason to be afraid. The song ended. Applause rose from the surrounding tables. It was not for the orchestra. Vincent turned toward the room. He kept Lena beside him. This is Lena Caruso, he said. His voice carried through the ballroom. She speaks with my authority. Several captains stared at him. One opened his mouth, then closed it. The declaration had not been part of the contract. Lena looked at Vincent. You did not discuss that with me. No, you should have. You earned more than the contract offered. That does not give you permission to offer it. His expression shifted. You are right. The immediate admission surprised her. Vincent lowered his voice. Do you want me to withdraw it? Lena looked around the ballroom, at the captains who doubted her, at the rivals measuring her, at the men who had spent their lives assuming a woman carrying a tray could not understand the room. No, she said. Vincent inclined his head. The matter was settled. They left the Sterling Hotel shortly after midnight. The cameras outside had multiplied. Reporters shouted questions about Patrick Callahan's sudden departure. Vincent and Lena gave no answer. Graham reached the car first. He stopped. A white envelope rested beneath the windshield wiper. Every guard moved at once. One searched beneath the vehicle. Another scanned the rooftops. Graham put on gloves and removed the envelope. No powder, no wire. He handed it to Lena. Her name was written across the front. Not Lena Hart, not Lena Caruso. Evelyn Cross. The old name struck harder than the photograph. Vincent saw her face. Do not open it here. Lena broke the seal. Inside was a photograph of a burning car beside a rain-soaked highway. Her car. The vehicle she had escaped 3 years earlier. Flames consumed the roof. Smoke rolled across the road. In the far corner of the image, almost hidden by darkness, a figure crawled through the marsh grass. Lena. Someone had seen her survive. She turned the photograph over. 5 words were written across the back. You should have stayed dead. Lena knew the handwriting. Warren Vale had signed every termination order at Briar Hill with the same narrow letters. The noise of the reporters faded. The cold no longer touched her. Vincent stood beside her, reading the message. His voice was quiet. Is it him? Lena looked toward the dark street beyond the hotel lights. Yes. A black car turned at the end of the block and disappeared into the city. Lena closed her fingers around the photograph. For 3 years, she had feared the moment Warren Vale discovered she was alive. Now the moment had arrived. She did not run. She stepped into Vincent's car and kept the photograph in her hand. Lena kept the photograph in her hand all the way back to the Caruso estate. The burning car glowed beneath the passing streetlights. Each flash of orange pulled her toward the highway outside Mobile where rain had filled her mouth and blood had soaked through her coat. She remembered crawling through reeds while Warren Vale's men stood near the wreck. She remembered one of them saying no one could have survived. Someone had seen her move. Someone had chosen not to tell Warren until now. Vincent sat beside her without asking questions. Graham spoke quietly into his radio from the front seat, ordering guards to search the hotel cameras, nearby buildings, and every vehicle that had passed the entrance. Lena stared at the 5 words on the back of the photograph. You should have stayed dead. Vincent finally broke the silence. I have a plane ready in Philadelphia. Lena looked up. For whom you? No. It leaves before dawn. No. His expression hardened. This is not a negotiation. Then you are speaking to the wrong woman. Vincent leaned closer. Warren Vale found you in a guarded hotel surrounded by hundreds of witnesses. He placed that envelope on our car without being seen. He wanted me to know he could. That is exactly why you are leaving. Lena placed the photograph between them. Running kept me alive. It never made me free. Vincent glanced toward the image. Freedom means nothing if you are dead, and hiding means nothing if he can reach me anywhere. The car turned through the gates of the estate. Security teams moved across the grounds before the vehicle stopped. Floodlights swept over the walls. 2 guards searched the driveway again as Vincent and Lena entered the house. Graham followed them into the library. He placed a tablet on the desk. The hotel cameras lost 11 minutes of footage before we arrived. Someone entered the control room using a staff access card. Whose card? Vincent asked. A banquet supervisor. He reported it missing yesterday. Lena removed her coat. Vale did not come alone. Graham looked toward her. You think Callahan helped him? I think Patrick opened the door, Warren walked through it. Vincent poured water into a glass and pushed it toward Lena. You are leaving until we identify everyone involved. She ignored the glass. No. Vincent's patience cracked. You are not listening. I am listening. You want to move me because it makes you feel in control. I want to keep you alive. You cannot protect me by placing me in another room and locking the door. I can protect you by putting distance between you and Vale. Lena stepped closer to the desk. Distance is his territory. Routes are his territory. Anonymous hotels, private planes, false names. I spent 3 years trying to defeat him on ground he understands. Vincent said nothing. Lena placed both palms on the desk. This house is not his territory. Graham watched her carefully. What are you proposing? She looked toward the shipping maps covering the wall. We give him a route. Vincent's eyes narrowed. A false one. Lena nodded. We let him believe I am moving the Briar Hill records through Gardner's Basin. You told me those records were not here. They are not. Where are they safe? Vincent's jaw tightened, but he let the question go. Lena continued. Vale will not send a message and wait. He will want the files before I can use them. Patrick will want them too. If Patrick learns where they are being moved, he will either sell the location or try to take them himself. Graham crossed his arms. How do we make sure they receive the same information? Lena looked toward the door. Tyler. Silence entered the room. Vincent straightened. What about him? He knew I worked at the breakwater. He knew when the fight footage was released. He had access to the employee system and your security schedules. Graham shook his head. Tyler is reckless. He is not disciplined enough to build this. He did not build it. He opened a door. Vincent's face became unreadable. You believe one of my lieutenants sold your identity. I believe the message appeared too quickly. Patrick had my old photograph within 3 days. Warren reached the hotel despite your security. Someone connected all three events. Graham opened the security records on the tablet. Tyler had entered the Breakwater's office after the fight. He claimed he was retrieving personal property. The office contained the employee files. Another record showed that Tyler had called an unregistered number 17 minutes later. Graham traced it through several forwarding services. The final connection belonged to a trucking company controlled by Patrick Callahan. Vincent looked at the screen for a long time. Then he pressed the intercom. "Bring Tyler to the house." Lena stopped him. "Not yet." Vincent looked up. "If he knows we suspect him, the route closes. You want to use him. I want Warren to trust the information." Graham understood first. "We let Tyler hear that the records are being moved." "Not here," Lena said. "Steal." Vincent moved toward the shipping map. "Gardner's Basin has 12 warehouses." "Warehouse 9, Lena said. "It has 2 loading bays, an old refrigeration tunnel, and roof access from the building next door." Graham studied her. "How do you know that I reviewed the property plans after dinner?" Vincent almost smiled. "Of course you did. Before sunrise, Lena created a false transfer order. The document stated that sealed Briar Hill records would arrive at Warehouse 9 shortly after midnight the following evening. The shipment would be protected by a small Caruso security team to avoid drawing attention. Graham placed the order in a restricted office folder. Tyler was brought to the estate at 9 that morning. He entered the library with anger already prepared. "You called me here to apologize." Vincent sat behind the desk. "For what? For letting her attack me." Lena stood near the window. Tyler saw her and stopped. The black diamond ring caught the morning light. His mouth twisted. "So it is real." Vincent's voice stayed calm. "You embarrassed yourself in my club. Do not blame my wife for the audience." Tyler looked at Lena. "She will get you killed. Leave," Vincent said. Tyler stared at him. "You brought me here to dismiss me. I brought you here so you would understand the order clearly. You do not approach Lena. You do not speak to her. You do not enter any room she occupies unless invited." Tyler's face reddened. "I have been loyal to you for 7 years. Then this should be easy." Tyler looked toward the folder Graham had left partly exposed on the desk. Lena saw his eyes settle on the Gardner's Basin seal. He looked away too quickly. Vincent dismissed him. Graham followed Tyler through the security cameras. Tyler remained in the hallway for nearly a minute after leaving the library. When the guard at the office door stepped away to answer a staged radio call, Tyler entered. He photographed the transfer order. 2 hours later, he sent the image to Patrick's trucking contact. By evening, another copy reached a Briar Hill account. Warren had taken the bait. The following night, fog rolled across Gardner's Basin. Warehouse 9 stood near the water, surrounded by stacked containers and abandoned machinery. The loading bays were open. One truck waited inside with its rear doors sealed. Lena watched the security feeds from a control room across the street. Vincent stood beside her. "You should not be here. We already discussed this. You ignored me. I disagreed with you." Graham's voice came through the radio. Callahan vehicles approaching from the north. 3 dark sport utility vehicles entered the basin with their lights off. Minutes later, 2 trucks bearing the logo of a southern freight company approached from the west. Warren's men. Lena watched both groups stop on opposite sides of the warehouse. Neither knew the other had been invited. Patrick's men entered first through the eastern loading bay. Warren's team moved through the refrigeration tunnel. Inside the warehouse, the false shipment sat beneath a single hanging light. Patrick's men reached it seconds before Warren's people appeared. Weapons rose. Voices echoed across the concrete. Each side accused the other of betrayal. A man wearing a Briar Hill jacket ordered Patrick's crew to step away from the truck. Patrick's lieutenant laughed. "You Southern boys came a long way to lose." The first shot struck the ceiling. The second shattered the hanging light. Darkness swallowed the warehouse. Lena pressed a control switch. Steel doors dropped over the loading bays. Magnetic locks sealed the tunnel. Emergency lights came on dim and red. The trapped men fired at shadows. Hidden cameras recorded every face weapon and confession. Vincent looked toward Lena. "You planned for them to shoot each other. I planned for them to believe they had been betrayed." Police sirens sounded in the distance. Graham had sent an anonymous report of armed men entering the warehouse. The sound changed the fight. Patrick's crew searched for an exit. Warren's men tried to break the tunnel lock. One man abandoned his rifle and crawled beneath a loading platform. Lena opened the western service door. Patrick's men found it first and escaped toward the water. Warren's team remained trapped with the truck and the weapons they had brought across state lines. Police vehicles surrounded the building. Officers entered through the bay after Graham remotely lifted the door. The cameras captured Warren's men surrendering beside crates filled with illegal rifles placed there by their own team. Vincent watched the feed. No Caruso weapons, no Caruso men inside. Lena nodded. Only two organizations arriving at the same warehouse to steal something that did not exist. What was in the truck paper? What kind old restaurant menus? Vincent looked at her. Lena allowed herself a faint smile. Graham found them in storage. By dawn, 7 members of Warren's network were in federal custody. 3 had active warrants. 1 carried a phone containing messages from Briar Hill accounts and Patrick's organization. Patrick could deny involvement. He could not erase the connection. Tyler was brought to the Caruso estate before noon. This time he entered the dining room with 2 guards behind him. Vincent's captains sat around the table. Lena stood at Vincent's right. Tyler looked from one face to another. "What is this?" Graham placed a phone on the table and played the recording of Tyler's call. His voice filled the room. He described Lena as dangerous, gave Patrick access to her employee file, and offered information about Caruso's shipments in exchange for money. Tyler's confidence disappeared. "That is not me." Graham played the next recording, then the next. Vincent sat quietly through all of them. When the final call ended, he looked at Lena. What should happen to him? The captains turned toward her. Tyler stared in disbelief. "You are asking her." Vincent did not look away from Lena. "Yes." Tyler stepped forward. One guard forced him back. "She has been here for a week. I gave you 7 years. Lena studied him. "You gave him 7 years because you believed loyalty was an investment. I was loyal. You sold his roots. I made one mistake. You sold my face to a man who tried to kill me." Tyler looked toward Vincent. "Do not let her do this." Vincent remained silent. Lena could have asked for Tyler's death. Everyone in the room expected it. She saw that expectation in the captains' faces. They wanted to know whether she would rule exactly as Vincent ruled. Lena looked toward Graham. "Give the federal investigators every record of Tyler's private business." Tyler went still. Vincent's eyes narrowed slightly. Lena continued. "Remove his rank accounts and protection. Let him explain the weapons, stolen cargo, and payments without the Caruso name shielding him." Tyler's face drained of color. "Prison will kill me." Lena met his eyes. "You wanted me powerless. Now you can learn what it feels like." The guards took him away. No one at the table spoke until the doors closed. One captain leaned forward. "You should have killed him." Lena looked at the man. Death would end his fear. Vincent's gaze remained on her. "And prison gives it a schedule." The captain sat back. No one questioned her again. Over the following weeks, Lena moved through the Caruso organization with the same attention she had once given shipping manifests. She found captains inflating fuel costs. She found duplicate payments to corrupt officials. She found warehouses with blind corners that allowed surveillance from nearby rooftops. She closed routes that passed too close to schools and residential streets. She replaced men who demanded obedience with people who provided accurate information. At first, Vincent's captains brought every decision to him. Then they began waiting outside Lena's office. She never asked for half the empire. She made herself necessary to all of it. One evening, Vincent found her standing on the terrace above the ocean. Winter had begun to loosen its grip on Atlantic City. The wind still carried cold, but the snow had vanished from the dunes. Lena held her old breakwater name tag between 2 fingers. Lena Hart. A borrowed name from a life built to disappear. Vincent stopped beside her. "Are you leaving?" She looked toward the dark water. "I used to think freedom meant no one knowing where to find me, and now I think it means they know exactly where I am and come anyway." Vincent watched her place the name tag on the stone railing. The wind lifted it. For a moment it spun beneath the terrace lights. Then it disappeared into the darkness. Vincent looked at the empty space. "I laughed when I offered to marry you. I remember. I thought the worst thing that could happen was losing my champion." Lena turned toward him. "You lost more than that. My peace. You never had peace. My privacy. You live with armed guards, half my office. You are using it badly. A smile touched his mouth. My empire. Lena looked toward the house behind them. Guards moved beyond the windows. Captains waited beneath the same roof. Roots that once belonged entirely to Vincent now carried decisions written in her hand. That too, she said. Vincent raised one hand toward her face, then stopped. May I? The question reached deeper than touch. It carried the contract, the separate rooms, and every moment he had chosen not to cross a line simply because he could. Lena closed the distance herself. She kissed him slowly, not as payment, not as surrender, as a choice. When they separated, Vincent rested his forehead lightly against hers. Lena looked into his eyes. This does not cancel the separate bedrooms. I would not renegotiate without my attorney. A laugh escaped her before she could stop it. For once, she did not look around to see who had heard. Months later, Lena returned to the breakwater. The steel cage remained beneath the white lights. Cole Maddox stood near the entrance with his healed arm resting against his chest. He now managed security and greeted Lena with a respectful nod. A young waitress crossed the floor carrying a tray. A drunken customer caught her wrist. Before the woman could apologize, Lena stepped between them. She wore a tailored black suit and the low black diamond ring. The man recognized her. His hand opened immediately. Lena looked at the frightened waitress. You do not apologize when someone else crosses the line. The woman nodded. From the balcony above, Vincent raised his glass. Lena looked up and raised hers in return. He had kept his promise. He had married the waitress who defeated his champion. He had simply failed to understand the wager. Lena had never entered his world to become a possession inside his empire. She entered it to survive. Then she made half of it hers.